Fighting corruption in Nigeria has become a constant phenomenon from one government leadership to another. Yet, corruption continues to stare directly in the faces of most Nigerians. The Code of Conduct Bureau, CCB, is a federal executive body set up by the federal government of Nigeria. The Bureau is mandated to establish and maintain a high standard of public morality in the conduct of government business and to ensure that the actions and behavior of public officers conform to the highest standards of public morality and accountability. However, in the face of various political leadership derailment by public officers, what should the Code of Conduct Bureau be doing to ensure the rule of law and accountability is achieved and sustained? Joining us now on this show as we look at the Bureau's efforts in ensuring that the actions and behavior of public officers conform to the highest standards of public morality and accountability is Dr. Abdullahi Usman Bello, Chairman, Code of Conduct Bureau, CCB. Good morning, Dr. Bello, and thank you for joining us on the morning show.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for having me.
Well, Dr. Bello, it will be exactly a year by March 29 that you were appointed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So 1 year in the saddle, what has the experience been like? What will you say you have achieved? What lessons have you learned? What challenges do you face?
Okay, thank you very much. Even though I was appointed in March of 2024, I actually started the job in October 2024, so it's not around 4 months ago. So what I've done since I came into office is I tried to understand the situation, the challenges that the Bureau is facing. I looked at all the challenges, the issues, and then I decided to go and meet the staff because we have offices in all the 36 states of the Federation. So what I did was that I went to all of the states and met the directors to find out what are the challenges, what are the achievements. So after doing that, then I draw up my vision. What do we need to do? Because Code of Conduct is a very important organization in Nigeria. We are supposed to ensure the highest standard of ethics in public service. And we do that by administering the asset declaration for public servants. Public servants, they are supposed to declare their assets at the beginning of their term or at the end of their term. Or if they are a public servant or civil servant, they are supposed to do it every 4 years. After doing that, for example, then we look at the investigation or enforcement of the other code of conduct, because we have 14 code of conducts, including bribery, including gifts, collecting gifts from contractors. You are not supposed to do that, including abuse of office. So we need to enforce the provision of the code of conduct and the Constitution. After doing that, for example, then we go and investigate. If there is any breach of code of conduct, then we are supposed to go and investigate it, and then we can take it to the Code of Conduct Tribunal. By investigation, if you are mentioning asset declaration, for example, we are going to look at your declaration at the beginning of the period, and then we look at your declaration at the end of the period. If you see any increase in your declaration that cannot be accounted for by your known sources of income, then we call you and ask you, how do you go about getting this property? You have one property at the beginning of your tenure. At the end of your tenure, you're declaring that you have 10 or 20 properties. Then we come and ask you to show us or explain to us how you got the additional properties that you are declaring. If you cannot do that, then we take you to Code of Conduct Tribunal, where the onus is on you to prove that you got it from legitimate sources. So the burden of proof have been shifted from law enforcement to the declarant. And that's one of the key differences between CCB and other anti-corruption agencies. Other anti-corruption agencies, they have to prove. But in our own case, we don't have to prove. So if you cannot do that, then there is punishment that can be meted on you by the Code of Conduct Tribunal. And one of them is that we forfeit the property or asset to federal government. And then finally, we have advocacy and enlightenment. We need to enlighten the public about their roles. How are they going to support the Code of Conduct? And also enlighten public servants on their duties and responsibilities as regard Code of Conduct, Bureau. So those essentially is what we have.
Well, Dr. Bello, just a small clarification. Your appointment letter,
Yes.
Or the statement appointing you was in March. You say you didn't assume office
Yes.
till October 2024. What happened? Why did you have to wait for so long? Or was the letter of appointment specific that you could not assume office until about 7 months later?
There are a lot of processes that you follow after appointment. And at that time, you know, there are issues. I think there was protests, there are strikes, and then the Senate went on recess and so many other things. So it's normal for you to, after your appointment, to go over a period of time before you actually assume office. So that's what happened. It's nothing out of the ordinary. I was appointed in March. I had to come and face the screening committee of the Senate. And then after the screening committee, and then it went to the whole House, the Senate, and then they approved it. After approving it, we have to send it to the president, and then they swear me. And so that is normal process in this kind of appointments.
All right, thank you very much. And I hear you. Thanks for giving us an overview of the responsibilities and duties of the Code of Conduct Bureau. I know you've only been in office since October, so it's just a few months. But you talk about these things, you know, asset declaration, monitoring assets acquired whilst in office, and if it doesn't add up, then there's an investigation instituted. Number one, what did you meet on ground in terms of cases that were pending? What have you been able to do in the interim, you know, since you got into office? Because we haven't really heard much from the Bureau in terms of investigations, or is it that everyone, all the public servants are, you know, doing really well with regards to their asset declaration and assets, you know, posts or whilst in office? So just in terms of what has any successes with regards to investigations? Are there people currently being investigated? What's the outcome? What are your success stories as a Bureau?
So thank you very much for that. What I've done after coming into office, I look at all the cases that we have, and I look at all the declarations that we have. So my own focus is to investigate the cases of breach of code of conduct. So if you look at the asset declaration that I'm mentioning, somebody has come into office and then he has left into office. So we need to analyze that. What I did was that I created a unit in CCB called Financial Investigation and Forensic Accounting Unit. And their job is for them to look at this declaration that have already been made, to analyze it, and then to show us the increase. And if we see any increase that is very huge, then we are going to investigate it further. I can tell you that we have started doing that. We are investigating local government chairmen, we are investigating former high-profile government officials. There's even somebody we are investigating right now that has asset abroad, and we are collaborating with foreign law enforcement agencies to establish the ownership of those assets. Even though we have evidence that that property belongs to that person, we have evidence that he bought it when he was a public servant, but we needed to have the evidence corroborated from the foreign law enforcement agency. And that assets, we are talking about in billions. So those are the things we are doing right now. We are also looking at the public officers that already passed, and then we are trying to analyze their assets as well. And we have seen instances where somebody has only one property when he came into office, and now he's saying that he has seven properties. Right now we are investigating that, and by the time we finish, we are going to take it to Code of Conduct Tribunal. So those are the things that I met, and then I'm trying to build capacity, because that is one thing that is very important for us to understand. The focus of CCB now is law enforcement. I happen to have a background in law enforcement. I used to be an investigator, financial crime investigator. So when I came, I said, okay, instead of us to do some other things, let's try and focus ourselves as law enforcement organization. Because if there is any doubt before that CCB is a law enforcement agency, now there should be no doubt that we are a law enforcement agency. And then some of the things, achievement that we have been having, we have had before is that all the anti-corruption agencies that we have, EFCC, ICPC, they request for information from CCB. And CCB provide information on corrupt public officers. So these success stories that you have been hearing from EFCC and ICPC, we are not going to claim it, but then we have contributed to it. Because even right now, if I go to my office, you see a lot of requests from EFCC, from ICPC about declaration of public servant under investigation. So we have a lot of collaboration with them. I even remember in 2007, even though I was not there, there was a joint task force between the EFCC and the CCB, where they sit in one room, in one house, and then CCB will provide information, and then EFCC will investigate the information, and then they will do joint investigation and get results. So those are the kind of things that we are doing. But then when I came, I said, no, why we can continue giving the information to EFCC and ICPC, but we also need to investigate it ourselves. And that's why I created this unit, Financial Investigation and Forensic Accounting Unit. I interviewed a lot of staff because I believe that there are a lot of capable staff in CCB. I interviewed them, we did training to them, and then essentially we selected a crop of forensic accountants who will help us to do that. And that's what we are doing. And then we have started seeing results. And then again, what I did again in CCB, I tasked my state directors that one of their functions is for them to provide intelligence for us. If you are a state director in Lagos, for example, in Kano, if you see any public servant that is living above his means, then you give us information about that public servant, and then we investigate it here. We are not just relying on petitions. We are not relying on petition only, but then the example of, let me just tell you the 3 instances where you can cause investigation into you as regard asset declaration. If you're a public servant, you declare an asset, and we verify it at the beginning of the term, we don't have any issue with you. And at the end of the term, if you declare an asset and we verify it, we also have no problem with you. So you have 4 years. CCB is not going to come after you at all. But the only reason why CCB will come after you is that if we receive a petition while you are in office, and then we investigate it, then we can investigate you for that. Or if you receive an intelligence about you living above your means, then we can investigate you. And then at the end of your tenure, we'll compare the initial and then the final declaration. And if we see any increase that cannot be explained from your known sources of income, we also investigate you. That is the first set of civil servants or public servants. But then we have some other public servants that we can cause investigation on them immediately. And those are the people that are not declared. Once you have not declared your asset, then it's a ground for us to commence investigation into you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations, on your work. Good to be here. I've got a barrage of questions for you this morning. Number one, a petition was sent to you by people in Kogi as regards what happened in the Senate, as regards the suspension of the senator and the committee that was set up. I don't know if you've received that petition. What's your take on that petition? Secondly, I also want to ask you about the image of the commission, because your last head, the chairman of Code of Conduct, was fighting phone sellers in Banex Plaza in Abuja, was openly fighting, and it was a street brawl. How you be able to correct such a very bad image? Then thirdly, what are your mechanisms for verification of those assets? And how do we apply, for instance, if we want to see the asset declaration form of the president, the vice president, and other top people in the country?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start with the first one. Let me start with the first one was about what, sorry? About, the case that was submitted to the CCB. As a matter of policy and principle, we don't discuss specific cases, because we are just starting now. We don't want to give information that it turns out to be false, because we have to look at all petitions and then we investigate it. So that's what I'm going to say about that. We don't talk about cases that specific, but then I can tell you any allegation or any petition for abuse of office, we are responsible for investigating that. And what do you mean by abuse of office? You are a public servant, and then you are in position of authority, and then you breach or you go against the right of another person, and then you do it unlawfully. That is our case. You can bring it to us, and I will tell public now, if you have any case of abuse of office, it doesn't matter whether he's a member of National Assembly, whether he's a public servant, whether he's any public servant. Once you have that case, you can send it to us. It's part of our duty to investigate it. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And then the second issue about the former chairman, and that's one reason why I'm here, because we have CCB and then we have CCT. People sometimes confuse these two organizations. CCB and CCT, they are two different organizations. I am the chairman of Code of Conduct Bureau, and then there is chairman of Code of Conduct Tribunal. The person that you're talking about was the chairman or is chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal. So it's not about CCB at all. So, and then the final one that you mentioned, if I remember correctly, you mentioned about asset declaration.
How do you verify the assets? What are the mechanisms for verification of the asset? Because a lot of these people have a long list of shell companies that you might not even have the powers to break into. So how do you verify the assets? And the last one is for the interest of Nigerians. If they want to know the asset declaration and see the forms of presidents or other high-ranking political officials, how do they go about it?
So how do you verify assets? You know, if you want to verify assets, there are two methods of verifying asset. The first is we need to verify that you actually own the asset or property. And then we need to do physical verification of those assets to see that they exist. So those are the two methods that we do. For example, if it is document, you have proof of ownership, you have purchase agreement, you have allocation letters. We can go to the land registry and ask for information. We can ask the purchase agreement. We can even go to your bank statement. If you purchase a property, we see the transfer of money from you, the buyer, to the seller. So that's one way of doing it. So that one is document verification, just to confirm you own that property. And then if it comes to physical verification, we go to the asset themselves to confirm that they exist, because people will just come and declare assets because they are anticipating that if they go into government, they will steal money and then they buy those assets. So you can go and check whether they actually exist.
Well, Dr. Bello, thank you very much. The other question will have been the level of synergy between the CCB and the other related agencies. You know, you mentioned only EFCC, but there are other agencies, but we seem to have run out of time. I think you should come more often. You know, so next time you are here, I would like to know what you have achieved so far and the level of synergy between the Bureau and other agencies. Thank you very much for joining us today.